On New Year's Eve, my husband, seeing how busy I was with dinner, offered to help our daughter with her homework. I was feeling pleased until I heard him stroking Chloe's hair and saying, "Daddy forgot, Chloe's already in 3rd grade now." I laughed and teased him, "What's this? Do you have another kid in 2nd grade somewhere?" Stephen explained that our daughter was just growing up so fast, and with him being so busy at work, he'd missed out on her development. But a moment later, scrolling through Facebook, I saw a post from his secretary showing off her son's report card. The caption read, "A huge thank you to Mr. S for all his help this semester. My 2nd grader got 1st place in his class for the first time." In response to the fawning comments, she added another post. Mr. S's work is confidential, and he's always traveling, which is a real headache. This little monkey only listens to his dad. My eyes fixed on a familiar stationery set lying next to the report card, and with a cold expression, I liked her post. Almost immediately, I received a New Year's greeting from her. "Happy New Year, Ms. Miller. Thank you for taking such good care of me these past 2 years." "Thank me?" I smiled and typed back a reply. "Candy, when you say taking care of you, does that also include taking care of my husband?" I clicked on the photo on my secretary Candy's Facebook page. In the corner of the report card, a stationery set identical to my daughter Chloe's was clearly visible. It was a sample Mr. Thompson from the manufacturing company had given me when we were discussing a partnership. If I remembered correctly, that particular set wasn't even on the market yet. It was scheduled to launch after the holidays, just before the new school semester began. He had sent me 2 sets, asking for my feedback so the factory could make final improvements. I had given 1 set to my daughter. The other was still in a cabinet, unopened. As I opened the cabinet door, a knot of suspicion tightening in my stomach, I saw the empty shelf. My suspicion was confirmed. "Honey, have you seen that other stationery set I had in the cabinet?" I asked. I was planning to give it to Rachel's son. Rachel is my best friend. Her son is in 1st grade. The expression on Stephen's face froze for a second. "No, I haven't seen it. Are you sure you didn't put it somewhere else and forget?" My heart dropped. I slowly closed the cabinet door, then picked up my phone and liked Candy's Facebook post. I commented on her post, "Candy, I love your son's stationery set. Can you send me the link? I'd like to get one for my daughter too." In the kitchen, Stephen and Chloe were sneaking holiday snacks. When he saw me, he asked her, "Chloe, Mommy's looking for a stationery set she had. Have you seen it?" I forced a smile. "It's the one that's just like yours." Chloe blinked her big, round eyes. My deskmate really liked it, so I gave it to her. Stephen let out a visible sigh of relief and ruffled our daughter's hair. "That's my girl, Chloe. It's good to share. Daddy's going to give you some extra gift money this year for being so generous." Just then, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a reply from Candy. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Miller, but it's not for sale. The little one's father brought it home for him." My eyes were glued to that phrase, the little one's father, and for a long moment, I couldn't think. For the last 6 months, Stephen had been traveling constantly for business. Candy had also been taking a lot of time off. I'd always given her leeway, thinking she was a single mom who needed the flexibility, so I never pressed for details. Now, an item from my own home was sitting brazenly in her photo, and the Mr. S she mentioned so fondly had to be Stephen. Suddenly, I remembered what my best friend had told me. "Stephen is handsome and successful, Sonny. You need to keep a close watch on him. There are plenty of women who would love to get into his bed." The last time he came to my office for a meeting, all the junior associates were staring. A few even asked for his number. I had just smiled and sipped my coffee, asking nonchalantly, "And did he give it to them?" Rachel had sighed, frustrated with my confidence. "No, he didn't. But you know how men are, always looking for something new and exciting." "I know him," I had said. "He wouldn't do that. We met in high school. For years, the top 2 spots in our class were a constant battle between us. To me, he was my greatest frenemy, but also my closest ally. After our final exams, he asked me, 'Do you know why I always managed to beat you for 1st place right after you'd taken it from me?' We ended up at the same university, where we fell deeply and passionately in love. We were never apart after graduation. I was by his side as he started his own company. Together, we fought to build our own stationery brand. We've been married for 10 years now. The State University alumni forums still tell our story this perfect, enviable romance. But right now, I couldn't say for sure that he wasn't cheating. I knew him too well, so well that I could see right through his pathetic attempt at hiding the truth. It was impossible not to let my mind race. After dinner, I checked Facebook again. Candy's post about the report card was gone, deleted sometime in the last hour. A new one had taken its place. It's snowing. The little monkey is insisting that Mr. S take him out to play. At that moment, Steven was sending out holiday bonuses in the company group chat. The first one was a random draw, and Candy got $5.20. Candy posted in the chat, "My luck is terrible. This won't even cover the cost of fixing my broken pipe." A well-meaning colleague asked what was wrong. Candy explained that a pipe in her bathroom had burst while she was cooking, and water was leaking everywhere. With it being New Year's Day, she couldn't find a plumber. She'd have to wait until morning to get it fixed. I, who never engaged in idle chatter in the work chat, broke character and sent a large cash gift to the group. Candy managed to claim over $100 this time. She sent me a private iMessage. "Happy New Year, Ms. Miller. Thank you for taking such good care of me these past 2 years." I smiled and typed back, "Candy, when you say taking care of you, does that also include taking care of my husband?" "Huh? Ms. Miller, what are you talking about? I don't have that kind of relationship with Mr. Carter. You must have misunderstood the Mr. S on my Facebook. It has nothing to do with Mr. Carter. Mr. S isn't him. My husband's last name is Smith. We just got remarried." I just smiled at her frantic string of explanations. Just then, Chloe started begging Steven to take her downstairs to play in the snow. "Chloe, sweetie, Daddy just got back from his trip, and he's very tired. Mommy will take you." The words were barely out of my mouth before Steven swept our daughter into his arms. "It's fine, Sonny. She wants to play, let's go." I said, "I'll go too." Steven paused, his hand on his shoes. "But you hate the cold, don't you? You stay here and watch the New Year's Eve special. Chloe and I will be back before you know it." Chloe chimed in, "Yeah, Mom. We'll be back really fast." "All right," I said, forcing a smile as I grabbed a coat and helped Steven put it on. As I did, my eyes lingered for a second on the inside pocket of his jacket. After they left, I sat on the sofa, watching the dot from the tracker I'd placed in his coat move across the map on my phone. I called a car service and followed it. The Sterling residences. The condos that were incredibly expensive, marketed as smart homes in a prime school district. I'd brought it up with Steven before, but he claimed our cash flow was too tight and we should wait. Based on what I knew of Candy's finances, there was no way she could afford a place like this on her own. Through the wrought iron fence, I watched Steven meet up with Candy. My daughter ran right to her. In the dim light of the car, the Bluetooth earpiece in my ear blinked blue, transmitting their conversation word for word. "Mama Candy, you look so pretty today." My daughter's sweet, syrupy voice felt like a knife twisting in my heart. She called her Mama Candy, which meant she knew. I stared through the car window at my daughter's back, my mind reeling in disbelief. This was the child I had poured my heart into raising for 9 years. Then I heard her say, "When Daddy said we were going to play in the snow, I just knew it meant we were coming to see you." Candy slipped a small bracelet onto my daughter's wrist. "Happy New Year, Chloe." Steven quickly intervened. "You don't have to do that. It's hard enough for you to make ends meet. I already have a gift for her." Candy took the opportunity to loop her arm through his. "Chloe is my daughter too. Of course I should. When will you finally spend a whole New Year's Eve with me?" Steven's face filled with regret. "Next year. I promise. Next year I'll be with you and our son. Let me go up and fix that pipe for you," he said. Candy leaned her head against his shoulder naturally. "I just want to stay like this with you for a little while." A chill spread through my chest. Every word Steven spoke was like a blade twisting in my gut. I called his phone. He picked up. "When are you coming home?" Steven glanced at his watch. "On my way now." He hung up. A moment later, I heard my daughter's voice through the earpiece. "I wish Mama Candy was my real mom." Steven's expression darkened. He sent the children off to play and then pulled Candy into a deep, passionate kiss. My stomach churned violently. I felt so sick I had to fight back the urge to vomit. With trembling hands, I sent the video I had just recorded to my lawyer. "I don't want custody anymore," I texted. A heavy weight settled in my chest as I heard Steven say, "I'll take Chloe home first. I'll come back to spend the night with you." Steven must have been feeling guilty, because he was unusually affectionate when he got home. He tried to wrap his arms around me, but I pushed him away. A little later, he took a phone call, then leaned in and whispered, "Sonny, some of our temperature-sensitive packaging wasn't put into storage at the office. I have to go take a look. With this blizzard, I'm worried the roads will be closed by morning." I kept my eyes shut tight, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Then you should go." I didn't sleep at all that night. Through the bug in his coat, I could hear the sounds of their lovemaking. I sat numbly by the window, watching the snow fall until it covered everything in a thin white blanket. A text came from Steven. "Sonny, the roads are completely blocked. Looks like I'll be stuck at the office for a couple of days." Candy's Facebook had a new post. "This beautiful snowstorm is like a gift from heaven, blessing our love." The photo was a selfie showing her bare shoulder. She had tried to cover them with makeup, but the bite marks were still visible. Around her neck was a glittering ruby necklace. I recognized it instantly. My friend Rachel had sent me a message about it just that morning. She said she'd run into Steven at an exclusive auction. He had won the bidding for a stunning ruby necklace. She assumed it was a New Year's gift for me and was texting to ask if I'd gotten it yet. She mentioned that she had loved the necklace and was about to bid on it herself, but stopped when she saw Steven was bidding, figuring he was buying it for me. Without a word, I forwarded Candy's Facebook post to her. Her call came through a second later. I had no choice but to answer. "Wow, I didn't know Steven was so wild," she exclaimed. "That's not me," I said flatly. I stared out at the blanket of white. "He's having an affair." Rachel hung up. A moment later, she sent me the contact information for a lawyer. "He handled my divorce," her text read. The lawyer she recommended was the same one who had represented her. He had offered me his card once, but I'd refused it. He mentioned he handled corporate disputes, not just divorces. If it wasn't for him, that bastard would have gotten custody of my son. Reading her text, the heart that had felt numb all night began to pound in my chest again. I texted back, "I'm not fighting for custody." I sent her the recording from the night before. She replied immediately, furious. "Where's that witch? I'm going to rip her to shreds." "The Sterling Residences," I wrote back. "On my way," she replied. Rachel and I found out Candy's exact address. Apartment 803, Building 2. It was the very same unit Steven and I had toured 6 months ago. I had fallen in love with it. But when I called the agent later, I was told it had already been sold. I never imagined. Steven had lied to me, claiming we couldn't afford it, only to buy it for his mistress. Rachel led me to the apartment directly below 703, and we knocked. The man who opened the door left us both speechless. "Mr. Davis? You live here?" Mr. Davis nodded, his eyes landing on me. We waited in the stairwell until we saw Steven, Candy, and her son leave the building. Then I called the property manager. "What is going on upstairs?" I complained. "There's so much water leaking down it's drowned all the plants on my balcony." The manager came up to investigate, leading us right to the door of 803. He knocked and called out tentatively, "Mr. Carter? Ms. Peterson? Are you home?" He sounded so familiar with them that Mr. Davis asked, "Mike, you know this family?" The young manager, Mike, grinned. "Sure do. They bought the place about 6 months ago. Nice family of 3. Mr. Carter's the nicest husband I've ever met. Whenever he's away on business, he asks me to keep an eye on his wife and son for him." Rachel scoffed. "Is that right?" Mike didn't pick up on her tone and just kept talking. "Don't worry, I'll give him a call. It's New Year's Day, so they're probably out visiting family." While he was dialing, the neighbor from next door stepped out. "Oh, are you looking for the Carters?" the woman asked kindly, seeing us all gathered there. He took his wife and son out for the day. Steven travels so much for work, it's nice they get a day out. They probably won't be back until tonight. Just then, Steven picked up the phone. Mike quickly explained the situation, saying they needed to get inside the apartment to check for the source of the leak and asking for his permission. Over the phone, we could hear a child's disappointed voice. "But Daddy, you promised you'd take me to the amusement park today." Then came Candy's voice, soothing him. Steven spoke to the child lovingly before saying into the phone, "I can't get back there right now. Mike, please go ahead. I'll leave it in your hands." Mr. Davis raised his phone to record, explaining to a surprised Mike, "Just documenting our entry. This way, if anything is claimed to be missing later, we're covered." The naive manager just praised Mr. Davis for being so thorough. It turned out the leak was just runoff from the neighbor's balcony, where a sprinkler had been left on. The water had pooled on Steven's balcony before dripping down to the one below. Of course, I was the one who had paid the neighbor to leave that sprinkler on. As I watched the video footage Mr. Davis had taken inside the apartment, I felt a wave of nausea and had to grab a trash can to be sick. In one sweeping shot of the bathroom, you could clearly see two pairs of handprints, one large and one small, pressed against the steamy shower tiles. It was obvious how intense their night had been. Everyone in this building believes Steven and Candy are a married couple. That's bigamy, Mr. Davis explained, laying out the potential criminal charges from a legal standpoint. At that exact moment, I received a text from the private investigator I'd hired. It contained financial records clearly showing that Steven had been funneling our marital assets into offshore accounts, which were then transferred to Candy. It had been happening for 9 years, starting right after our first anniversary. The moment I saw the name on the account, my heart seized. It was a name I knew all too well. So, it had been her all along. My hand started to shake, and my entire body felt numb, as if it didn't belong to me. If I had known it would come to this, I never would have helped her back then. Mr. Davis advised me to be patient and continue gathering irrefutable evidence of Steven's affair. Since we co-owned the company, I needed concrete proof to ensure the division of assets would fall heavily in my favor. If you're going to strike, you have to aim for the kill. To bring him down completely, I needed an airtight case. Over the holiday week, Rachel helped me with everything. Meanwhile, Steven, Chloe, Candy, and her son were playing the part of a happy family. Mr. Davis sent me a new audio file. He had run into Steven in the elevator with one of the neighbors. "Steven, who's this adorable little girl?" the neighbor asked. "My daughter," he replied. Then after a pause, added, "She's from my previous marriage." Candy then jumped in, smiling. "Mrs. Reynolds, she's practically my own daughter." Chloe's voice piped up, "Mama Candy, you're the best." For the rest of the holiday, I pretended not to see or hear anything. By the time the holiday ended, I had almost all the evidence I needed. Steven announced he had to go on another business trip, this time for a whole month. If I hadn't been tracking his car and seen him drive his suitcase straight to the Sterling residences, I might have actually believed him. I want a divorce. Steven's fingers froze over his keyboard. His expression shifted from disbelief to a mixture of guilt and shame. "I know I've been traveling too much this year. I promise when I get back from this trip, I'll make it up to you." He was trying to lie his way out of it, but he couldn't hide the way his Adam's apple bobbed nervously in his throat. "You can have full custody of Chloe," I said, sliding the signed divorce agreement across the desk to him. "I get 80% of our shared assets. You get 20. Steven's brow furrowed, and his fingers twitched. "No, I'm not signing this. Whatever I did, just tell me. I can fix it, Sonny, please. Chloe needs her mother, and I need you." I had no idea if any part of what he was saying was genuine. All I knew for sure was that our daughter had chosen Candy as her mother, and he had chosen to build a new family with Candy. Let's just say, I began, that I've fallen in love with someone else. I swallowed the lump in my throat, trying to maintain one last shred of dignity. It was a test, and I knew he would understand the implication. At that exact moment, Candy knocked and entered with a file for me to sign. She thought I didn't see the quick glance she shot at the divorce papers on my desk. Less than a minute after she left, Steven excused himself, saying he had to take a work call, and walked out of the office. Our company, Evergreen Stationery, was about to go public. It was the child I had nurtured from the very beginning. I didn't want my messy divorce from Steven to jeopardize its future. I never imagined he would be the one to drag me and the company through the mud. My lie about falling in love with someone else became the weapon Steven used against me. He called an emergency board meeting and had me removed from my position as CEO, citing a morality clause. They paid me lip service, of course, promising to reinstate me once the situation was resolved. In reality, they planned to push through several major projects in my absence, diluting my shares and power. Betrayal and injustice always go hand in hand. I ignored the protests of his new assistant and stormed into the conference room where he was in the middle of promoting Candy to general manager. I plugged a flash drive into the laptop, double-clicked a file, and the projector lit up. Every eye in the room was glued to the screen. One look was all it took for Stephen's pupils to shrink to pinpricks. The boardroom was dead silent. Then, after a moment, a wave of whispers washed over the room, directed at Stephen and Candy. The first image on the screen was a photo of the two of them, holding each other close on that snowy New Year's Eve. Next came a map, showing the GPS tracks from his car for every business trip over the past 6 months, all leading to a single destination, the Sterling residences. Then photos from inside the apartment, the walls covered in their wedding pictures. There were photos of their little family of 3 everywhere. A video showed them walking hand in hand through the building's courtyard as a neighbor called out, "Afternoon, Stephen," taking a walk with the wife. They both smiled warmly, their intertwined hands tightening. Photo after photo, video after video, I buried them both in a swamp of evidence. No matter how they struggled, it was no use. Every denial would only make them sink deeper. Stephen lunged toward me, trying to grab the flash drive from the laptop. "Turn it off," he roared. "What's wrong? You were brave enough to do it, but you can't bear to face it." I crossed my arms and watched as he brought his fist down, smashing the laptop screen. "I have copies," I said calmly. "Smash whatever you like." "Stephen, I gave you a chance to do this gracefully." His face was ashen, and the look in his eyes was no longer pleading, but pure, seething hatred. So love really could be an act. Perhaps we had been in love once, a long time ago, but not anymore. A commotion started to build among the board members, who were now pointing and whispering openly. "Is that Candy's son with Mr. Carter? He's gotten so big." So Mr. Carter was living a double life? I always heard these wealthy power couples had arrangements. Arrangements. Candy seized on that phrase like a lifeline. Barely able to stand, she gripped the edge of the conference table. "That's not it. Ms. Miller, everyone knows you and Mr. Carter have a marriage of convenience." I had to admit, the plastic surgeon she'd used did excellent work. Those perfectly sculpted eyelids, in particular, gave her face an innocent, pitiable look. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she sobbed. "I never, ever wanted to take your place." As she spoke, she reached for my arm. "Ms. Miller, I'm a victim in all of this too." I shook her hand off without changing my expression, watching her pathetic performance with zero patience. "Stephen and I built this company from nothing. This was never a marriage of convenience for some corporate merger. Candy, don't you think that's a rather pathetic excuse?" I walked past her and picked up the microphone on the table. "Stephen Carter and I fell in love at State University. We married after graduation, and together we founded Evergreen Stationery. And now, for the sake of his mistress, he is trying to force me out of the company we built. Ladies and gentlemen of the board." Stephen snatched the microphone from my hand and switched it off. "Sonny, are you really going to be this cruel? Evergreen is about to go public. Are you really willing to burn 10 years of our lives to the ground over this?" I looked at the cold resolve in his eyes and said softly, "I'm not the cruel one here. You lied to me for 9 years, Stephen. If you're going to be a snake, you should learn not to leave a trail. And now that I've found you out, don't think for a second this will end quietly." I moved to stand in front of Candy. "Candy Peterson. Oh, wait, I should be calling you by your real name, shouldn't I? I truly regret the day I ever decided to help you." Candy Peterson, the name on all those offshore accounts Stephen had been funding for years. 10 years ago, when our startup was just beginning to see some success, we were invited back to our university for an alumni event. That's where I first met her. She was a freshman on the student event committee, assigned to serve refreshments to the guest speakers. She wasn't particularly pretty or charismatic. She just seemed like a quiet, hard-working student. But she tripped over a poorly taped-down power cord and spilled an entire tray of water all over another alumnus's laptop. He was in the middle of demonstrating a software program he was about to use to bid for a major contract. Not knowing any better, Candy immediately tried to wipe it with her sleeve and then frantically pressed the power button. The motherboard shorted out. All the data was lost. By all rights, the entire disaster was her fault. Facing a torrent of abuse from the guy, she insisted she would take full responsibility. "How much is it? I'll pay for it," she stammered, frantically digging in her pockets. The largest bill she could find was a 20. The man whose project was now ruined was practically screaming at her. Pay for it with what? Do you have any idea how much this laptop cost? $5,000. You could sell your organs and not have enough. You useless little hick. You can't even carry a tray of water. Candy knelt and picked up her money, which was now wet and had been trampled under his feet. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I'll get a job. I promise I'll pay you back. I can sign an IOU. The man snatched her student ID from the floor, sneering at her name and photo. Look at this, a little chicken trying to pretend she's a swan. What a pathetic, broke little nobody. Candy lunged for the card. Give that back. The money on that card is for my grandmother's medicine. You can't take it. My heart clenched. It reminded me of when I was a little girl, and I would hear my mother arguing constantly with my uncles. My mother would cry every day, and my grandmother would just hold her and cry too. It was only when I was older that I understood. My uncles had refused to help pay for my grandmother's surgery. She's lived a long life, they'd said. Letting go would be a mercy. Besides, it's cancer. There's no cure, so why waste good money on a lost cause? The stress made my mother physically ill. My aunt eventually threw my grandmother out of their house. Our son is getting married soon. We can't have a dying person in the house. Go stay with your daughter. And so, I stepped in to defend Candy. At the time, I wasn't thinking about anything profound. I certainly never expected her to repay me for it someday. I just saw someone in a familiar kind of pain, and I stepped in. It was as if I was trying to be the person my grandmother needed all those years ago, the person I was too young and naive to be for her then. In that moment, I was trying to fix a regret from my own childhood. Stephen told me not to get involved, that it was none of our business, and he was right. But I had our tech team pull an all-nighter to rebuild the man's presentation from scratch, and later, anonymously donated to the fund for Candy's grandmother. After that, I didn't hear from her again. The next time I saw her was years later when Stephen brought her in for an interview at our company. I didn't even recognize her as the same girl. She had changed so much. She had some cosmetic work done, and she carried herself with a confidence that was a world away from the timid girl I remembered. Stephen said he thought she looked a little like me, and that as a single mother, she deserved a break. He said I was overworked and that Candy could help lighten my load. So he created a position for her. My personal secretary. I never imagined that the real reason Stephen wanted her at the company was so he could be closer to her. I never knew that back then. When Candy wanted to repay me, she had asked Stephen for my contact information, and that I, unwittingly, became the reason they started talking. While I was at home, recovering from childbirth, Stephen was sleeping with her. They had a son. A sharp pain shot through my chest. I turned and walked toward the boardroom door without a backward glance. In the hallway, I ran right into Chloe and Stephen's other child, who had apparently been rushed to the office. "Mom," Chloe began. She looked at me, her expression full of anxiety, as if I were the one destroying her happy family. Even though I had already decided not to fight for custody, even though I knew about their secret life, the sight of them still sent a searing pain through my heart. My husband had been lying to me for 9 years. My daughter considered another woman her mother. I suddenly felt like a complete failure. The warm, happy, unshakable family I thought I had built was nothing but a sham, a Truman Show where I was the star and the only one who didn't know the truth. 10 years. I stared at my daughter's timid face, and in that instant, a strange, cold realization washed over me. Her eyes, her brow, they were the spitting image of Candy's from all those years ago. A horrifying thought began to form in my mind, a feeling as sickening as the moment I realized Stephen's affair. Blood ties, I thought bitterly, what a powerful, cruel thing. Powerful enough to make the daughter I had raised for 9 years look at me like a stranger. I left without another word, drove straight to a private lab, and ordered a DNA test. The moment I saw the results, I felt as if I'd been struck by lightning. Then, Rachel asked, her voice soft, "Where is your baby?" I crushed the report in my fist. The daughter I had raised for 9 years was not mine. So where was the child I had carried for 8 months, the child I had given birth to? I went to the hospital and requested my records from the delivery. They had switched to a digital system since then, and many of the old paper files have been lost. Luckily, a fragment of my chart was found, tucked away in a dusty archive box. Sunny Miller, female, Age 24. Premature delivery. Male infant deceased. The attending physician from back then vaguely remembered my case. I was the pregnant woman who had been brought in after a car accident. I'd suffered a major blow to my abdomen, and the baby hadn't survived. I do remember, she said, that there happened to be an abandoned infant in the nursery at the same time. Your husband told us he'd spoken with you, and you both decided to adopt her. It's so rare to have abandoned babies these days. If it weren't for that strange coincidence, I probably wouldn't remember a case from a decade ago. Rachel and I then went back to the university to speak with Candy's old academic advisor. That girl, the advisor recalled, she took a year off during her sophomore year to care for her sick grandmother. When she came back, she still wasn't doing well, so she ended up taking another year off. She was a very determined student, just had a difficult home life. I'm sure you've seen how resilient she is at work. I told Rachel I was donating to her grandmother's medical fund, but the old woman was too proud. She took herself off life support. That was the year Stephen and I got married. Candy was a freshman. Rachel exploded. Resilient? Bull. She's a damn parasite. Her sophomore year, when she took that leave of absence, that was the year you were pregnant. She wasn't caring for her grandmother. She was hiding away to have Stephen's baby. And Stephen is a monster, cheating on you right after you got married, and making you raise his mistress's child for 9 years. I leaned against a tree on the sidewalk, feeling hollowed out, like my heart had been physically removed. I had always believed a healthy relationship was built on trust, not suspicion. I was too confident. I believed Stephen loved me too much to ever betray me. And I loved him just as deeply and would never have dreamed of it. I never grilled him about his business trips. I never worried about other women. I was sure that he loved only me. Reality, it turned out, had other plans. At least I woke up from the dream before it was too late. Worried I might do something drastic, Rachel insisted on coming home with me that night. Stephen was waiting on the sofa. While I walked in, he knelt down to put my slippers on my feet. You have some nerve showing your face here, Rachel snapped. Stephen, I was so wrong about you. It was ironic, considering Rachel was the one who had introduced us in the first place. Stephen and I were in different homerooms and probably never would have met. But Rachel, who was outgoing and energetic, couldn't stand his know-it-all attitude. So she started bringing advanced math problems to school to pit us against each other. She always bet on me to win. But I had to admit, Stephen was brilliant. He always found a more elegant, more unconventional way to solve the problems. I started asking him to show me his methods, and our intellectual rivalry soon blossomed into mutual admiration and then love. I'm sorry, he said, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I never meant for it to happen. It was an accident. Candy was waiting outside the office every day. It was right after you sprained your ankle and were stuck at home. She stopped me, asking for your bank information to pay you back for her grandmother's medical bills. Her grandmother had just died, and she was exhausted from the funeral. She fainted right there on the sidewalk. I had to take her to the hospital. She found me again the next day. She handed me an envelope. Here's $1,000, she said. I'll pay back the rest as soon as I can. I was afraid Sonny wouldn't take it, so I got it in cash. Can you please give it to her for me? I came home and asked you if you remembered her. You said you did, and you told me to just let it go, to think of it as a donation to someone in need. I planned to give the money back to her the next time I saw her, but she was there again the next day, waiting downstairs. She wanted to buy me dinner to thank me. A huge storm hit that evening. The buses stopped running, and she lived way out in the suburbs. By the time I drove her home, my car was out of gas. She was a mess, just sitting on the floor of her tiny apartment, drinking and crying in front of a photo of her grandmother. I left the money on her table, told her to use it for school, and I walked out. I didn't see her after that. Not until months later. I was at a client dinner, and she was one of the waitresses. I drank too much that night. I never thought she would get pregnant, and I certainly never thought she would keep the baby. The next time I saw her was in the hospital. The day you had your accident, the day we lost our son. She was in the maternity ward. She had just given birth to Chloe. She'd had my child, Sonny. I couldn't just abandon her. And then what? I asked. How did the second one happen? She would call me, crying, begging to see Chloe. Stephen's face was a mask of guilt and regret. I let out a bitter laugh. Let me guess, you were drinking? He nodded, then added desperately. She just looks so much like you, Sonny. In the dark, I thought it was you. Don't you dare, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Do not use me as an excuse for your weakness. He was trying to use our supposed resemblance to absolve himself of guilt, but I wasn't going to let him. And what do you want from me? A round of applause for your tragic, star-crossed love affair. Stephen reached out and grabbed my arm. I love you, Sonny. I swear, I do. You love me. I laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Is letting me raise your child with another woman, letting me believe for 9 years that she was mine, is that your idea of love? Is lying to my face for a decade while you played house with her behind my back your idea of love? Stephen shook his head frantically. It wasn't like that. I just didn't want to hurt you. You wanted a child so badly. I knew if you found out our son had died, it would have destroyed you. I wasn't trying to trick you. I was trying to protect you. Don't be ridiculous, Stephen. You were too weak to end it with her, and too cowardly to tell me the truth. That isn't love. I brushed his hand off my arm. Love isn't about lies, and it isn't about pain. We're finished, Stephen. You can have your daughter. I'm keeping the company. A flicker of something, maybe relief, crossed his face before he clenched his fists. No, I pour my life into Evergreen too. I'll give you a settlement, but I'm not giving you the company. With negotiations at a standstill, he stormed out of the house. I heard the deadbolt click behind him. For the first time in months, I smiled. That wasn't his decision to make. Thankfully, I was prepared. While Stephen was under official investigation, I retook my position as CEO of Evergreen. I then fired both him and Candy for embezzlement of company funds. I also pressed criminal charges against Stephen for bigamy. In court, Mr. Davis presented the evidence piece by piece. The recordings, the financial records, and the sworn testimony from their neighbors at the Sterling residences. Candy denied everything, claiming she had no idea Stephen was married. She played the victim, insisting he had deceived her. It was an obvious and pathetic lie. As my personal secretary, it was impossible for her not to know I was married to the company's co-founder. Following her lawyer's script, she then claimed Stephen had coerced her, that she was afraid of him. Stephen just stared at her, this woman who was now trying so desperately to sever all ties with him, as if he were looking at a complete stranger. In the end, Stephen went to prison, but not before protecting Candy one last time. The kids need their mother, he said in his final statement. Candy, please, take good care of our children. That was the last time they spoke. She never visited him in prison. I, on the other hand, would occasionally update him on her life. Candy got married again. I'd tell him. Her new husband, Mr. Wallace, didn't want another man's kids around, so she put them in foster care. She has a new baby now, a boy. She never visits your children. Chloe found me one day with her little brother in tow. Mom, she began, for the 9 years I called you Mom, could you please? I cut her off. No. From the moment she chose Candy, from the moment she helped her father lie to me, she stopped being my daughter. When Stephen got out of prison, he took the 2 kids and started selling hot dogs from a cart near the local elementary school. He was constantly getting ticketed by code enforcement. One afternoon, Rachel asked me to pick up her son from school. I saw him there by his cart. Sonny, he pleaded, I know I was wrong. Please, can you just give me one more chance? Sir, I said with a polite, distant smile, I think you've mistaken me for someone else. Life is full of choices. It's not the end of the world if you make the wrong one. The tragedy is in being unable to live with the consequences.